What's up, you beautiful people? We are back once again to some malicious compliance. So let's jump right in the stories, and I'll see you in a bit. You think it's not poison oak? Rub it on your face. I went hiking one spring with a friend of a friend. I kept telling him to stay away from the poison oak and gave him a tiny lecture on how to identify it. He insisted that it wasn't poison oak. I insisted it was. After several disagreements when encountering this plant, I suggested that if he really believed it wasn't poison oak, he would rub it on his face. Surprisingly, he did. Next week, he showed up at my house to collect some items he had left at my house with a massively swollen red face. I said nothing. He said nothing. I felt bad, but not as bad as he felt, I'm sure. My malicious suggestion was taken up by this stubborn, argumentative type, and I felt bad about it. Suffice it to say, we never went hiking again. The time my sister did some malicious compliance on me. This happened around 3 years ago, and I still remember it clearly to this day. I came back home from school one day, Friday, and I changed into my regular house clothes. I placed my pants in the laundry bin and decided to help out my dad working on our car. Around 10 minutes later, my sister comes to me and tells me she found my wallet. I was thinking she was snooping around my stuff and told her to just put it back where she found it. She tries to say something, but I cut her off and say, I already told you, just put it back where you found it, okay? It's not that hard to do. The next day, Saturday, my mom wakes me up and tells me my wallet is drenched in soapy water. She found it inside my pants as she was doing the laundry. Confused, I wonder to myself, why? How is that possible? Then it hits me. Well played, sis. I have to wear the tiny school uniform shirts? Okay. Not a particularly poignant malicious compliance, but it felt like a big victory back then. I'm a guy, and I attended a small private Christian school for middle school. We had uniforms for regular day wear, as well as for PE. The PE shorts were the worst. I had bought the largest pair they had, and they barely reached my thighs. I tried sagging my shorts, but the school was strict about keeping your shirt tucked in, and the amount of sagging necessary meant the shirt tail wouldn't stay in. I complained that the shorts were too short, but the vice principal told me I had to be in uniform or I'd have to pull a card. Part of the behavior management system that was pretty common in my area. I was sick of wearing the stupid things and being self-conscious of the world's tiniest shorts in the era of baggy clothes. So I decided to do something about it. I wore my favorite Nike shorts that hung below my knees and put the short shorts on top of the larger ones. Then made sure to tuck in the shirt. During PE, the vice principal said, "Silvertone 62, you're supposed to be in uniform." I said, "I am in uniform, and my shirt's even tucked in. See?" He just looked at me for a few seconds and he said, "Just take off the uniform shirts. You can wear the long ones. It just looks bad otherwise." And I got to wear normal shorts during PE for the rest of the year. An essay about why I didn't do my homework? You got it. I just got reminded of a malicious compliance story of my own. I'm not sure if it really belongs here, as what I did probably was somewhat along the lines of what the teacher expected, but I thought it was somewhat amusing. So, as the title suggests, this one day in high school, I didn't do my math homework. My teacher was really intimidating. His face, his voice, mannerisms, a stereotype strict teacher. And the fact that he partially managed the absentee system, while I often missed classes, didn't really help either. He tore me a new one every other week. Anyway, I rarely looked at assigned homework. With every school subject, I just looked in the textbooks once a week, did the assignments, and that's it. Resulted in being ahead of a lot of subjects, but occasionally also falling behind. This was one of those times I fell behind. So, he gave me an assignment as punishment. Write a 300-word essay why I didn't do my homework. That's why I'm not sure if it really belongs here. He knew it was bullcrap, and that the reason students don't do it can often be summed up in 1 to 20 words. So I went to work. The dog of the aunt, of the friend, of the neighbor, of the uncle, of the mom, of the mistress, of the father, of the nemesis of the classmate, of the... well, you get the gist of it. Etc., etc., etc. Of my friend ate my homework. 300 words on the dot. I followed the dress code, technically. When I was in 8th and 9th grade, my parents decided to send me to a private school that was run by my church. I had come from a public school and was not used to a dress code that dictated what you wore. The uniform consisted of a light blue, or white, collared button-down shirt, and navy blue pants for boys, or knee-length or longer navy blue skirt for girls. Black or brown closed-toed shoes were also required. High school, 9th grade plus, girls were required to wear pantyhose or tights. I hated this because I'm a tad eccentric and like to wear bright colors and creative styles. When I was in 8th grade, I could wear socks with my shoes, and there was no explicitly stated rule on colors, so I went nuts. I wore the loudest socks I could find. Bonus if they were knee-high. The teachers hated it, but couldn't do anything about it. The next year's dress code included a rule that socks had to be black, white, or navy blue. That was fine for me. I was in 9th grade and had to wear pantyhose/tights. I walked in on day 1 of the new school year, rocking neon blue tights. I stocked up on bright yellow, green, etc. The next year they had to come out with a rule for that too. But by then, thankfully, I had moved and went back to a public school. As I'm just a stupid nurse, I'll let you handle the respirator, doctor. A little background. This story happened while I was working at a major Northern European university hospital. I'm an ICU nurse with some experience in treatment of patients with respiratory and cardiac distress. The ICU I work at specializes in thoracosurgery, everything that's in the chest, and cardiology. These are big differences in how complicated it is to treat our patients, since this is a fairly diverse group. Some have major respiratory issues like ARDS, while others are fairly easygoing, at least respiration-wise. Because of that, we are granted much freedom in self-adjusting the respirator, as our doctors know that we can call them if there is something we can't handle. I like to believe that some of the more experienced nurses are also more savvy than some doctors. Anyway, we have no problems with hierarchy. If a doctor says we do it a certain way, then we do that. But mostly, it's a fairly flat hierarchy with a good cooperative work going. Sometimes we get some young doctors who are doing their specialized training. Most of them are humble, but you have the occasional Mr. Know-It-All. This was the case here. We got a doctor in special training who came from another major hospital in this country. I don't know him, as he has just been there a few days. But I could see that I was scheduled to take a patient in together with him. It was a middle-aged lady after a big heart surgery. Normally, when we get a patient from the surgical ward, the doctors will talk to each other, while we handle practical stuff, like shifting from transport to a stationary respirator, setting surveillance up, etc. While I was shifting the respirator, this doctor jumps over to take the tubes out of my hands and says very harshly, "This is my respirator." Everyone looked a little bewildered, but well, I just thought I'll talk to him about that later. Before I could talk to him under 4 eyes, he came to the nurse's office to announce to everyone that he doesn't know what we are used to here, but nobody's allowed to meddle with his respirator. We are just nurses. He is the doctor. Well, you got it, doc. As I wrote earlier, if a patient is in respiratory distress, we will of course always follow protocol and talk to a doctor before changing anything. But with patients who aren't, we normally take work off the doctor's shoulders by adjusting stuff like oxygenation, airflow, and so on ourselves. But since he was very clear, I went to call him every time. Oxygen level and blood samples is a little low? Rather call the doctor. I want him to know that we should raise the oxygen level by 5%. CO2 is a little low? It's the doctor's job to lower the respiration rate by 2. You see where this is going. Of course, we also call him in night shifts, when he was sleeping, because it was calm. This went on for 3 weeks, until he came to the nurse's office, looking a little bit defeated, stating that maybe it's okay if we drop that whole thing and do as we otherwise always did. But we went on for a little longer, until he changed the ward again, because he had been with us as long as he should. I've got a friend on the ward he works at now. She says he is one of the nicest doctors she ever met. Alrighty guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, of course, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're new. And if you really liked it, maybe give it a thumbs up and a share. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.